I believe that biological research studies should be fully academic in nature. That means that fishery scientists should be freed from interference they presently suffer from competing interest groups or fears their careers might suffer if their studies fail to suit national fiscal policies. As I see it, the role of governments should be confined to a regulatory function that ensures biological abundance, the observance of human rights, and the elements of fair competition. For instance, we heard this yesterday, the annual codfish quota in Icelandic waters has been allocated as about 25% of the fishable biomass. This has turned out to result in overexploitation, and the current scientists wanted lower and lower quotas. Our current minister, fisheries minister, has decided to bite the bullet, accept the advice, and set the cod quotas this year of 130,000 tons, down from 193,000 tons. This is the kind of leadership we need everywhere in fisheries management. He has also kept our capelin purse seiners in port until sufficient stocks were found. That is proper fisheries management in practice. Unfortunately, doing what is right for the fish can be far from popular. All too often, we see weak ministers allowing excessive quotas, presumably in search of votes. In the future, however, we will need even more refined management. One of the shortcomings of the Icelandic quota system is that it does not differentiate between the various cod fishing areas and the various subpopulations of cod. It does not allow for closing areas based on the status of subpopulations. The long-term answer to the problems of fish stocks lies not in counting the fish on our immediate doorstep, but in rising to the challenge of ensuring that the stocks as a whole can support and sustain the needs of the local communities throughout its range. We almost certainly should manage cod not by human needs for geographical areas, but according to the areas based on biological assessments of populations and subpopulations. We also need multi-species models that include prey and predator. While I am on the topic of cod, it seems a good time to mention what appears to be a flurry of interest across the region in cod aquaculture. For many years, the global market's need for more and more fish is the reason why large-scale salmon farming was introduced to the North Atlantic. About 1 million metric tons of Atlantic salmon is now produced annually, mostly in the coastal areas of Norway. Sadly, this industry developed too fast, and the foreseeable and unforeseeable negative effects rapidly escalated. No area has escaped some damage, and in some, the damage has been extreme. This shows the area around Bergen. Salmon stocks there, wild salmon stocks, have declined, I think, by between 50 and 90%. I suspect that they will never, ever again recover. Anyway, it seems now that some of the planning a similar headlong approach to meet the demand for Atlantic cod. Millions of government kronas, as well as private money, are to be spent on the infrastructure to set up cod farms and developing cod that have suitable genes. In a recent press interview, a fisheries minister encouraged entrepreneurs to speed up this process and said, in effect, Let the scientists worry about solving problems for the environment at a later stage. And this is exactly the way the salmon farming developed. There has already been mortality in cod farms from bacterial infections that on first look appear to have been caused by an unknown bacterium from a family that includes other deadly bacteria. It seems that we still have failed to learn our lessons. Are we as species unable to learn from mistakes? We do not want our coastal cod stocks to face such an adventurous and potentially dangerous exercise until we can assure ourselves it can be handled safely. Pilot schemes for cod should be limited to small projects and kept isolated from our natural stocks. Having said all of that, the future is likely to require aquaculture to the world. I am only asking that it be done responsibly and certainly not at the expense of our natural cod fisheries along our coasts. We must also do a better job of managing what is known as industrial fisheries. In fact, these fisheries will likely become more of a concern. There are many reasons to suspect that cod, salmon, and many other species need a greater supply of capelin and sand eels than they can now find. I find it very difficult to see the logic of scooping up prey species away from our valuable stocks of salmon and cod just to feed salmon farms or subsidized European pig farms. More and more conservation elements should be introduced into our management regimes. Hook and line on other stationary fishing gear, which does little or no damage to the habitat, should be favored over those that wreck the habitat. It is vital that the cost of habitat damage be set against the short-term harvesting benefits of more effective fishing gear. Additionally, the problems of discard and bycatch should be better addressed than at present. To summarize, number one, the need for regional quotas based on biologically relevant regions and not those based on human communities, geography, or historic fisheries. Two, optimum exploitation that focuses fishing effort on the various age groups that can best withstand fishing pressure. Three, conservation elements, including closing areas to allow shrinking fish stocks to recover and avoiding high-grading discards and other similar bycatch issues. Number four, aquaculture, where we simply cannot afford mistakes and must base all future decisions on a much less risk-tolerant approach. Five, safeguarding the food chain through the reduction and much greater control of industrial fishing and a ban on trawling in areas where it is really damaging habitat. Let me now turn to a broader view. We can see that the better aspects of the fisheries management model in use in the North Atlantic is by no means followed throughout the world's oceans. In global terms, ocean capture fisheries have a turnover of about $100 billion annually. Rough calculations based upon case studies of individual fisheries suggest that the global fisheries could produce profits of at least $50 billion annually. Nevertheless, in spite of some recent bright spots, much of this industry is not making money at all. And without its inappropriate government-funded subsidies, it might be losing as much as $20 or $30 billion annually. At the same time, the majority of the most valuable fish stocks worldwide are being seriously overexploited, and collateral environmental damage is resulting from inappropriate fishing methods.